Welcome to Right Now. Let's have it right, the UK has been a fascist state for 18 months now. But this week, 319 monumentally arrogant and uneducated MPs have voted to basically stop pretending anymore. They passed a law making the experimental medical procedure with no long-term testing mandatory for care home workers. Joseph Mengele approves.
They're actually arguing, first of all, that no, we're not bringing vaccines to your door. That's crazy conspiracy theory. Except we just talked about it happening in North Carolina and another location where they're literally bringing vaccines to your door and trying to coerce you to get them on the spot. And by the way, these are all people that have already said no, which is what they've already told us. We're going to be going to the unvaccinated doors, meaning they already know there are people that have been offered it and said no, and they're going to try to force it on you. And the biggest point on top of all that is that the FDA, in their mandatory requirements for the administration of this that's been given to all these people, says they have to have all the equipment necessary for any of the possible side effects. So do they have equipment there for myocarditis? They have equipment there for immediate strokes and blood clots? They don't. They don't care, though. You see, it's about that at all costs, not even concern themselves with the actual laws, regulations, morals, all of it.
So what's happened in Carolina then? If they've gone to the door, have people just gone, oh, okay? Or have they gone, no, I said no and I meant no?
Right. That's what I was saying just in the last show, is that they make a point in this local mainstream coverage where it's like, it's just very telling, by the way, that they're like, and it's not aggressive at all. They're very, very kind and the only reason they say that is because they're clear that we see it as aggressive. And they made a point to say that people that said no, well, then they follow up. Okay, well, why? Why are you saying no? Do you know all the information? Are you sure you understand what's going on? And it's just, if your answer is no, that should be the end of the conversation, especially since you've already said no and now they're following up to see if you want to say no again. I wrote a recent did a recent show about this recently, that no is not an option here. You've never had the option to say no. And I want people to really understand what that means. Just because they're going, we're not going to force you right now, it doesn't mean they won't force you tomorrow. But in this moment, if you say no and they're going to, Biden every other second is telling you they're going to keep trying to get that person to get it, well, no is not an option.
March and April of 2020, I had 12 successive calls to go directly to care homes. And that's something that's really, really unusual. That never, ever, ever happens. It was all care home deaths, one after the other, not even any hospital visits in between. And it jumped out at me. It was like a eureka moment. And that was the very brief first wave. So interestingly, what's come to light since is that I've got a contact who's got a team of guys who correlate in the purchase of midazolam and other sedative derivatives, and there's up to 1,000% increase in the procurement of these drugs at that time that I was going in and out of care homes constantly. I would hasten to add, it only lasted no more than 3 weeks. And then it went totally back to normal, and to the point where in August, September, the pandemic guy that had begun ringing me earlier in the year said, I don't know why they've got me doing this. There are no there are no COVID deaths. Everyone's saying the same thing. And lo and behold, I had an email a month ago telling me he won't be in touch anymore because there's no need. And this was a government-sponsored pandemic guy who would ring me every Monday, and it changed. There was various people that did the same job. They would ring me every Monday and say, how many of you had in? Where are they from? What's your capacity? Which I thought was a bizarre question. And how many are COVID? And I would tell them. And the conversation would go much like, I picked up a gentleman from a care home. He was in his 90s. He passed away from natural causes. There was no COVID test, no ventilator or anything like that there. It wasn't COVID. But wasn't there COVID in the care home? Wasn't there COVID on that hospital wing?
Oh, man.
Yeah, deliberately steering me.
So in terms of the Wuhan lab, because obviously that's something that has been sort of theorized quite a lot. How to sort of kind of, counteract that? If Wuhan is obviously a level 4 lab, which I think is the highest level in the world, obviously what's been released from there, you would imagine would be like a mass cull, as you said that they said, but obviously we've got a survival rate of sort of 99.76. So
right,
do you think?
Well, yeah, I don't think the virus was necessarily released to. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it was released necessarily to do a mass killing, although he does use the word cull, but to disrupt the world's economic systems, to to disrupt the way we do business and the way we run and function. Some people would say it was all to bring in the vaccine.
Well, I wanted to do a show that's an extension of what you guys do here, obviously right now, having a sort of smaller time to be able to talk to people about this stuff. And as we know, we do the research of this. It takes a long time to go into any depth that actually makes any sense. So I wanted to do a show that you could expand on the interviews that you do, so they get to speak and kind of really tell the whole story of what they're doing. And obviously that's what we're calling Deep Dive. It wanted to be able to show people that you actually need to hear the whole story to get all the information. If not, out of context, it just sounds mad. Yeah, and that's a real problem we're having. Like as your dad does with some of the stuff that he talks about, is if you don't hear all of it without the context and understanding the background of it, it can seem quite absurd. And if we're going to convince people of the madness that's actually happening, you need to show them in the right sort of format. And I think a longer show would really benefit the people that come on, and it give them a chance to actually be able to talk in length and show their passion for why they're speaking out.
Even once this, these so-called restrictions were lifted, obviously you're working at a depleted capacity. I'm assuming the industry's still taking a battering even when they're supposedly reopened.
Yeah, 100%. It's they lost a lot of money during lockdown. I mean, I was quoted, my brewery particularly, the one I use, $500,000 a week during the actual lockdown, which obviously you're not going to survive on that. And then when we opened, I think they had some big hitters in their pubs, but our pub, probably down to my stance, we have a village where there's 5 pubs, and a lot of the village, I think we're avoiding my pub due to my stance regarding vaccinations and my feelings over COVID. So I think that the brewery, they will suffer from many of their pubs. They would have depleted areas, especially with the ridiculous restrictions of table service and everything else. And if pub landlords have been following the rules closely and they're having to shut because of stupid QR codes and this, that, and the other, their businesses are going to be hit. Everyone's going to be hit. It's insanity, really.
I also see it as, because there's 3 pubs in the village I live in. One went in the first lockdown, done, finished. They're turning that into flats. And another one has survived, I think they've got a few quid anyway, the landlord and landlady. I think it's just a bit of fun for them. But the other one is completely struggling. And I look at it and I think a lot of the reason they're struggling is not even just the fact that they were closed, which is obviously massive, but also that once they reopen, the pub isn't the same experience anymore. So if I can't, for me personally, I'd like to go to the pub on my own, chat to someone at the bar, make a friend, and you can't do any of that anymore.
I actually said to a few people, you wait until they start vaccinating, the death rate will soar. And they all laughed at me. They said I was crackers. And lo and behold, January, we broke up for Christmas. We were doing funerals before Christmas, but it was quiet. It wasn't excessive. It wasn't pandemic level. We broke up for Christmas. I looked after one family on Christmas Day, bless him. And then I came back and they began vaccinating locally in January the 6th. And immediately it went off the charts. 2.5 times the death rate, I would say. And it wasn't like the first time where it was all care homes. It was a mixed bag. So it was a mixed bag, I'd suggest, of recipients.
Yeah. I don't think it's a crystal ball that you need to have come up with the opinion that this winter is going to be a dark one. I think that's obvious, and the government themselves are saying in their own literature that they expect 70+% to die that have had both jabs.
They're preparing you for what is going to happen. They're just saying it's going to be down to a new variant of flu, and I've heard a couple of government ministers say, interesting, it's going to affect mostly recipients. Well, why is it? Because you've given them a life-saving vaccine, a vaccine that you've openly touted as 65% effective. So that leaves a big window of 35% for failure and death. And do you know what they did tell you beforehand, though? Yeah,
they always tell you. Thanks so much for talking to us, John. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you speaking out, mate. It's much, much appreciated.
To be honest with you, we all leave a legacy when we pass away. I've had a good life. If my legacy could be waking one person up and potentially saving them, or forcing the dialogue that's needed before they mandate, because they're going to, and then eventually they're going to come door to door and track you all down. I want to stop that from happening, because I believe this is genocide. It's a cull.
I think that Trump, I mean, just a quick point on it. The obvious point to make here, and again, whether or not Trump was aware of it or not, what would have happened during all of this if Trump hadn't been president? Let's say hypothetically Hillary Clinton had won. What was Trump's presence? What did it really do? Whether it was intentional or not, it pacified easily the most resistant grouping of people to what is happening right now. The militias, the constitutionalists, all these people that if Hillary Clinton was in office would have she blinked too hard. It would have been martial law. Everybody would have flipped out. It would have been revolting. But Trump's there. So now he brings in martial law. He brings in production martial law. He brings in all these different things that were, under Obama, they would have flipped out about. And they were, well, Trump's doing it, so it's good. Well, obviously it's not. We see where this went. So whether that was intentional or not, that is a huge play there. And I think that's going to happen again. I mean, you've got these Trump supporters that are beginning to see that they've been played, or hopefully they saw that already, from QAnon to everything that's happened and hasn't happened. But I think they're going to get wrapped right back up into it because he's going to have some narrative about why this was supposed to happen this way. And, you know, and that's what I've been saying about QAnon and Russiagate. These are just ways to wrap people back into the two-party illusion from different angles.
And so these are the type of things that I'm hearing when I'm running tapes in reverse. And what we are tapping into is what they are really thinking and feeling. Let me play one more example. This is Dr. Fauci being asked if he had funded gain-of-function research.
But again, we have not funded gain-of-function research on this virus in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. No matter how many times you say it, there was research.
So he's denying it forward. No, we have not funded gain-of-function research. But backwards, he says, yes, super germ.
Yes, super germ. Yes, super germ.
So he's admitted, yes, we did fund gain-of-function research and we created a far superior virus. So this is the type of things we hear in reverse. Quick phrases, they're 1 or 2 seconds long. They occur every 15 or 20 seconds of speech, and they are what is really going on in the mind of the speaker, if that makes sense.
I don't go to any of the pubs in the village. I know that they don't think and feel the same as we do in this pub. I've put myself in a position, I know that. It's cost me recently. I lost my chef to a competitor in the village because business was slow. This is me standing up for my beliefs and my children's rights and all our rights. And you know, this is just a pub at the end of the day, but it's important in terms of our social life. And people need to stand up. People need to see through and see the big picture of what's happening here. Unfortunately, I don't think they are. We are seriously at war here, in my opinion, and scary times.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, but we appreciate your stance, and I know a lot of people will, and hopefully, you know, people will support the pub for what you're doing.
Yeah, we've got we've got a group of people. A lot of the Stand in the Park guys are coming every week, you know, so they are supporting the pub and they're getting together, and it's beautiful because they're mixing and building a network and new friends. That's important, and that's what a pub really should be about. You know, I've hired, I think you interviewed a good friend of mine, Carly, who was the NHS care nurse who lost her job when she protested last year at Trafalgar Square. She now works for the pub. You know, so we are building a pub for awake people in that respect, and people are supporting us, and long may that continue, and hopefully people will just let us get on with it.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for what you're doing, and thank you for talking to us, and good luck with everything, and I hope everyone supports you.